Take a moment for your body. Take a moment for your mind. Take a moment for your spirit. Take a moment to be well. Take a moment to be healthy. Take a moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment every day. Take a moment for your body. Take a moment for your mind. Take a moment for your spirit. Take a moment to be well. Take a moment to be happy. Take a moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment to show you care. Take a moment to show you care. Just to show how much you care. Yeah.
Good evening and welcome to another Healing Moments. Now this month we're all about service. We have Elder Trevor Blandman on, we have Dr. Dupree on, and we have Sherry Sobers on. Again, we're going to deal with the mental health aspect, we're going to deal with the health aspect, and we're going to deal with your spiritual aspect. Now, as always, after during the show, you have your chance to participate in the program. Remember to type your questions whether you're here on Zoom or on YouTube, and our panelists will be sure to answer you. Now, before we go any further, let's all ask Mr. Trevor Blenman to give us a word of prayer and to start the ball rolling with our evening devotion.
Good evening, everyone. It is good to be on Healing Moments. Normally, you would be seeing Pastor Lucas, but Pastor Lucas happens to be wearing many hats. And this evening, he has lent me one to stand in place of him this evening. Let us, as usual, begin with prayer. Shall we bow our heads? Heavenly Father, we want to acknowledge you and give you adoration and praise due to your matchless name. We want to thank you for your protection, for provision. But most of all, we want to thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ, the sinner's friend. This evening, we come before you knowing that our words, our thoughts, and our actions has not always been in accordance with your will, but you are a forgiving God. So this evening, we ask you to forgive us, that as we come before you to go through these healing moments, that indeed the Holy Spirit will lead. And at the end of the exercise, all of us will be drawn closer to you. This is our prayer for Christ's sake. Amen. Doing good to everyone. Doing good to everyone. Unfortunately, we don't always follow that injunction from the Bible. We tend to pick and choose individuals to whom we should do good. But Jesus Christ himself said, do good to those who despitefully use you, who say all manner of evil things against you. So he isn't telling you to do good to your friends and your family and your loved ones, because that is understood. But even those who go against us, we are admonished by Jesus to do good to them. Our text is Galatians 6:10, and it states, therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all, especially to those who are of the household of faith. Now, Marion Paris is a journalist who writes about politics. She writes about social issues and life in general for prestigious British magazines such as The Times of London, The Financial Times, The Economist, The Independent, and others. Now, it says that though her aptitudes and skills were evident from a young age, sometimes in her interaction with others, she appeared to be indifferent and thoughtless. For example, she could speak all morning to an individual and then later on come across that same person without even speaking. However, her indifference and thoughtlessness are not caused by negative personality traits. She suffers from a peculiar brain disease called prosopagnosia, which prevents her from recognizing people's faces. To overcome this condition and identify people, Marianne has developed the ability to pay attention to people's voice pitch and traits. She suffers. Remember the color of their eyes. Identify any striking moles on their face, or even focusing on their glasses, their hairstyle, or their hair color. Beyond her work or disease, she is also involved in a foundation dedicated to educating people in the fields of economics, politics, and social sciences. Through this foundation, she manifested a deep concern for social justice by literally putting into practice the saying of doing good to everyone, regardless of who they are. But friends, you know, as I began by saying, it is not easy doing good to others without seeing to whom help is given. People often consciously or unconsciously try to differentiate between those who they think deserve to be helped and those who do not. And they use different methods of identifying whom, in their judgment, needs help the most. What most of us ignore is the fact that the disease of selfishness or pride greatly distorts our perception. And we sometimes help those who can return the favor, one way or another. Today's Bible verse indicates that we must take advantage of every opportunity to do good to others without taking wealth, education, influence, or power into account. The love of Christ can fix our defective vision, make it possible for us to do good to everyone. So if you want to do good to everyone, first get in relationship with Christ. Allow the presence of the Holy Spirit to guide you. And we know when the Holy Spirit comes, he brings with him the fruit of the Spirit, which is love. And then we have the other aspects of love: gentleness, meekness, kindness, faith, etc., etc. So cultivating a personal relationship by allowing the Holy Spirit to possess you means that you will not differentiate. We will not differentiate in those to whom we should show kindness or to those for whom we should love. This is your chance to help. It is one that we all should seek to cultivate, that of doing good to everyone. It is not easy, but it is possible. And it is possible as long as we give God first place in our lives. So let us go forward, all with the understanding that no matter who come to us, and we can do good for them, we don't measure them by this educational status, their wealth, etc., simply because we think they can return the favor. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Trevor Blyman, for that word. Now, what you said sometimes is a lot true. Sometimes our selfishness and pride distort our perception of others. Now, last week, Sherry Sober spoke about the different types of service that we perform. Now, this week, she is going to speak to why of service and the benefits of social actions. Sorry, and the benefits of pro-social actions. Sister Sobers, let's hear what you have to say.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome once again. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Brother Blenman, for that interesting perspective on acts of kindness. Now, sometimes we wonder, why is it that persons are easily able to do acts of kindness. They're easily able to do different types of service. And then for others, it's a little difficult. So you may be wondering, are there inherent characteristics that are similar to persons who enjoy doing acts of kindness? Do they have personality traits in common? Where do these ideas of doing random acts of kindness come from? And that there may be a myriad of other questions. So today I want to share with us some of the benefits, yes, but some of the whys of doing acts of kindness. And I'm sure you may be thinking about, why do you do certain things for certain people? Why is it easy? Or sometimes why is it difficult to be able to perform or do certain acts of kindness? For some people, it could be simply because of a personal benefit. You know, we just spoke about being selfish, but sometimes we can even be selfish when we are doing acts of kindness. Egotistical reasons. For us, it may seem as if it improves our social image. It could be a club that we are part of, it could be an association, it could even be church. And for us, it boosts our self image when we are seen or known as some person who does a lot of acts of kindness. Sometimes persons have reciprocal benefits. So in your mind, you do something for someone, or you only do something for someone who can return the favor. They may not return the favor exactly how you would have done, whatever you would have done to them, but you know you do, so that at some point in time, you can tap that person on the shoulder and say, remember when? Now, is this really a good thing? Nevertheless, some of us have those kinds of thoughts when we are looking at performing acts of kindness. But then there are those of us who are socialized in such a way. So from a child and as an adolescent, you see the adults around you encouraging you to be kind, to help others, and they model the behavior. And for you, it is just natural. It is just something you come up seeing your parents do. For example, you come up seeing your parents cooking a whole set of food, and people from the neighborhood come in and just having a meal, sharing a meal. And for you, that is just normal. So when you are a grown adult and you have the opportunity to share, you share those things as well. That is just one example. Now, in addition to the obvious benefits that we would have spoken about pro-social behaviors and actions last week. And just to remind you, if you're not sure what pro-social mean, think of antisocial. I think the opposite of antisocial. So when some person is known as an antisocial person, they don't really gel well. They don't really communicate well with the other person. So obviously, but so therefore, if you're the opposite of that, pro-social, it means that you are comfortable and accustomed and you act in the right way in social situations. And we spoke about the fact that we can do things for others and make them feel good, especially when they are not able to return the favor. And when we know we're really pulling them up and helping them. We spoke about the fact that for the person who is getting the assistance, makes them feel good. But for the person who is actually helping, the helper, there are also some benefits. Let me give you just a few. Research, and this is research-based. Research shows that helping others can boost your mood. It can make you feel better. So think about this way and listen to it. People who engage in pro-social behaviors are more likely to have better moods. Not only that, people who help others tend to experience negative moods less frequently. Now that is quite interesting. So we have the mood boosting effect, the positive mood boosting effect. As well, the effect for the helper can be a social support type of benefit. Now, we know that no man is an island. And when we help, we never know where that person, where that influence may lead, and how the impact of the persons in your sphere, how wide it can be. Not that you're helping to see what they can do for you, but think of it this way. There may be a point in your life when you may help someone, and at that point, they cannot help you back. But way down the road, and I'm sure many of you may have these experiences, way down the road, you meet them again, and at some point, in some way, they are able to help. I know, for example, those of us in the education sphere, many times we see children that we would have watched grow from primary to secondary, from secondary to tertiary, and now they are at the point when they are able to help us as we are older. And it makes you feel really good to look and see, wow, this is a child that I watched grow and develop. That is an example of a social support benefit. And finally, and really, really important, because I know we have a lot of stress around us, doing good to others can relieve your stress. Again, this is research driven. And research has found that engaging in pro-social behaviors help mitigate the negative emotional effects of stress. Helping others may actually be a great way of reducing the impact of stress in our lives. Because think about it this way. When you help someone, for that moment in time, you are able to literally forget about what is going on with you and focus on someone else. And that is important. So while there are so many other benefits, those are just a few that I would have pulled out to share with you this evening. But you may also be wondering, how can I improve my pro-social behavior? I'm going to name 3 of them for you. Number 1, continue to develop your skills. Sometimes people don't help because they don't really have the skills to help, or they don't know how they can help. So for example, you can overcome this by maybe doing a course with first aid, doing a course of CPR. Not that you're going to go around looking for people to save, but should the opportunity come up, you have those skills and in an emergency. Now, modeling is very important. We spoke before about parents modeling, and we continue to encourage you to model pro-social actions. If you're a parent, provide a good example for your children. If you are in church and you are one of the elderly ones, one of the more experienced, model those behaviors for the teens, the children, and the adolescents. And finally, praise acts of kindness. Always affirm, because not only do people feel good when you affirm them, but it gives them a boost of confidence to know, well, hey, I am on the right track. Let me keep on going. So we can go on and on for the remainder of the evening, but we're going to stop just about now. When it comes to the benefits, the whys in terms of doing good towards others, I want us to remember the words of St. Francis of Assisi, and he said that it is in giving that we receive. Remember, whatever you do, however you help, whoever you help, remember that it is in giving that we receive. Thank you so much, and I look forward to sharing with you as we go into our question and answer section later on in the program.
Take a moment for your body. Take a moment for your mind. Take a moment for your spirit. Take a moment to be well. Take a moment to be healthy. Take a moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment every day. Take a moment for your body. Take a moment for your mind. Take a moment for your spirit. Take a moment to be well. Take a moment to be happy. Take a moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment to show you care. Take a moment to show you care. Just to show how much you care. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sister Sherry, for your thoughts on the way of service and the benefits of pro-social actions. Before we get to Dr. Dupree and the health aspect, let's talk about those voice notes. Remember, we are asking you to send your voice notes on the service that you have performed for the end of the month. We will post the email address for Good News Community SDA Church in the chat. I will call it back again, and remember that this is for next week, so get those voice notes coming. Last week, Dr. Dupree spoke about the kindness hormone, which is oxytocin, and is better known as the love hormone. Remember that after Dr. Dupree, you will have your opportunity to ask your questions, and our three panelists are here to answer any questions you have on service thus far. But before I say that, remember that in sharing your voice notes, we have to be very careful in calling people's names. We want you to be very discreet. And if it's not your experience, we want you to ask permission first from the person that you're sharing with in order for us to air that program. Now, before we go to Dr. Dupree again, let's talk service. Now, I know many of you are doing acts of and kindness of service throughout your community, especially after the hurricane that we had the other day. I want you to continue your service. I want you to continue your kindness. So, again, I want to go to Dr. Dupree, and we will go to the health aspect of the program.
Evening, everyone. And as I said last week, everything we do is related to health, not just what I say, but also the spiritual aspect and the psychological aspect. They all related to health as well. And I remember somebody asking whether you do good deeds to feel good or whether you do it because it's the right thing to do. Yes, we do good deeds because it's the right thing to do, but we're also stressing that, remember, we're dealing with mental health this year, and we're also stressing that good deeds are good for your mental health. Remember Sister Sherry talking about pro-social acts and the effect they have on the body. So I'm saying that it is the right thing to do. It is not only the right thing to do, but it actually promotes good health and good living. Right. So last week we talked about oxytocin and the fact that it was released when random acts of kindness are performed. And this week we will be talking about another hormone, neuropeptide, which can act as a hormone and as a neurotransmitter. and that's a group of substances called endorphins. So I'm going to share my screen now and talk a little bit neuroscience of kindness. Sorry, operating to right. So I'm saying that I'm hearing acts of kindness such as volunteering, helping. They release, not going to correct something I said last week about oxytocin, about it's produced by the hypothalamus but stored in the pituitary. Endogenous opioids produced by endogenous, it means that they are as opposed to exogenous. For example, estrogen, which is an endogenous hormone, but it can also be given to a patient. And in that case, it becomes exogenous. And so the effects may be slightly different or they may be the same. So we have exogenous opioids like morphine and oxycodone. And I'm sure you've heard about the opioid crisis in the US, and you know that many people are addicted to pain medication, especially the opioids. So opioids not only relieve pain, but they produce a feeling of well-being. So a woman in labor, she's in a lot of pain. She gets what's the one that they give us in labor? Forgetting that one. But anyway, so anytime a person is treated with an opioid, it not only relieves the pain, but it gives them a feeling of well-being. So it produces euphoria, have them to feel like they're floating. And that also helps manage pain because pain is, but there's a lot of mental as well. So if you can deal with the mental aspect in pain, they the body to release feel good hormones like the endorphins. And so they feel better. Even somebody singing to you can help you to feel better. So opioids have that dual action of well-being or euphoria. The central nervous system, as I said, morphine, oxycodone, heroin, fentanyl, those are the common ones that we know about. How do we perceive pain? Pain is perceived by receptors. So if you get pinched, you have pain receptors in your skin that can pick up the sensation or perceive the sensation of pain and then transmit it. If you have inflammation in your gut or if the bowels are stretched because of too much air or any other material that causes the bowel to stretch, then you have stretch receptors and pain receptors, which again will perceive the sensation that something is wrong and will transmit it to the brain. And this is just an image to show you where the pituitary gland is. Looks like a little knot just at the base of the brain. And the pituitary gland, as I mentioned before, is the master gland and it controls many of the other endocrine glands in the body. So, pain perception. At the top here, nociceptive information, um, pain, pain appreciation, appreciation. That's what it means. I mentioned inflammation in the guts causing pain. And so you have neurons or nerve cells that perceive the pain. The ends of the neurons convert this sensation into action potentials, transmits them across the nerve to the spinal cord, and then project them along the dorsal horn to the brain. And the brain perceives the pain. It not only perceives that there is right. Okay, so I'm not sure where you lost me or where I lost you, but as I was saying, the action potentials are transmitted across the neuron, from neuron to neuron, and then to the brain. And when it gets to the end of one neuron to transmit to the other, then the impulse has to cross a gap. And how does it do that? By releasing what we call neurotransmitters. When we did the talk on addiction, Dr. Bogle did a very, very good presentation on neurotransmitters and how they are involved in addiction. So, the short of it is that when the action potential gets to the end of the nerve cell, it has to be transmitted to the other cell. Then what happens is that neurotransmitters are released at the end of the nerve, cross the gap, and then attach to receptors on the other on the other cell. We're saying all this to say that pain transmission goes from neuron to neuron until it gets to the brain. However, the endorphins, which are made endogenously, which are made in the body, are able to block pain receptors. So they can do it in multiple ways. They can either block the neurotransmitters that are going to be released, or they can cause them cause the neurotransmitter to be blocked from attaching to the next cell. So in short, as I was saying again, the endorphins, they act just like opioids, which block pain transmission from one nerve cell to the next, or from a nerve cell to the central nervous system, which is the brain or spinal cord. So if you're going to be making opioids, then it's good for your health. It can actually prevent you from experiencing pain. So, well, all of this is to explain what I was just saying. Endogenous opioids bind to opioid receptors on the pain transmitting neurons, and by a number of complex processes, they make the neurons less receptive to the pain signal, or they literally block the pain signal. And again, this is a diagram showing that endorphins bind to opiate receptors located on the presynaptic membrane, that is the neuron that's transmitting, and they block the release of substance P. which is one of the substances that allows you to transmit um, pain signals from one cell to the next. So the endorphins are blocking that. What does that have to do with you? I'm saying that when you do good deeds, and you're not just doing good deeds for pain control, but when you do good deeds, you not only release the love hormone, the cuddle hormone, the feel good hormone, but you also releasing endogenous endorphins, which make you feel good, but as well can block pain sensation. So doing good will actually produce a high, just like taking morphine or heroin, but it has no risk of addiction. So it's safer. So if you want to feel good, do a good deed because it is the right thing to do, but it also has health benefits. Sister Sherry was saying that people who do acts of kindness have fewer episodes of bad moods, generally have um, good moods. And as I mentioned last week, the endogenous opioids counteract the effect of cortisol. And cortisol, if you recall, is a stress hormone, the one that makes you anxious and hyper and even sometimes aggressive. If you are counteracting that with endorphins, because anxiety and relaxation cannot survive in the same organism at the same time, if you're producing endorphins, then you're counteracting the stress hormone and helping yourself to actually feel better. So good deeds are good for your health. They prolong life, they reduce blood pressure, they reduce anxiety, and they help you to feel good about yourself. They actually also increase self-esteem. So do good. I need to stop sharing. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dupree. And like Dr. Dupree says, do good. Now is your chance to ask your questions. So let's hear what you have to say. Remember to type your questions in the chat, and our panelists will answer them for you. And first up, we have Marion Paris, who is on YouTube. And as I omitted to do earlier, let me do it now. Welcome to each and every one of you on YouTube and on our Zoom platform. We're so happy that you're here with us. Remember, you still have time. You can call a friend and tell a friend that Healing Moments is on, and it is your turn to ask your questions. So, Marion Paris, I'm going to ask your question for you. And your question is, should you help others because it makes you feel good or because it is the right thing to do? And one of our panelists can jump in here.
Thank you very much for allowing me to jump in. Should you help others because it's the right thing or because it makes you feel good? What about just helping them because of both? So that's my answer to that person's question. Yes, we help others because we know it's the right thing to do. And as I would have said earlier, because it gives us that good feeling. I really, as I was listening to Dr. Dupree about how it makes you feel that high, I actually understood what she was talking about because I don't know if anyone has experienced it. Maybe you can share, but you really get a high from feeling good when it comes to helping others. And yes, as I said before, it boosts your self-image, but that's not just the reason. The real reason is you help them because they need the help. So it is not only about how you feel. It is not only about it being the right or the wrong thing, but you help because they need the help. And if you are in that position to help, sure, go ahead. Help someone who will help someone who will help someone. Yes, Brother Benman.
Yes, I like to say you do it, you do it because it is right. Our feelings change. The way you feel about something today is not necessarily the same you feel tomorrow. Doing good is a principle. Principles do not change. Do it because it's the right thing, whether you feel it doing it or not.
Thank you, Sister Sherry and Brother Blandman. Now, my question is for you, Sister Sherry. You spoke about the pro-social behavior and what is acting right. But what is your definition of acting right? Because sometimes what people see as, what do you say? Say that word again for me. Not pro-social, the opposite of pro-social.
Antisocial.
Antisocial. Sometimes what people see as antisocial isn't really antisocial. Sometimes you're just waiting for that person to come over and say hi. So I want you to explain that a little better for me, please, if you can. Thank you.
Do you want me to explain pro-social or antisocial?
No, you spoke about what was acting right. That pro-social was acting right. But I'm saying to you that sometimes we perceive people as Elder Blemon said earlier, our selfishness perceive things that are not really there. So sometimes we are not antisocial. Sometimes we are just a little bit shy and waiting for that person to come over and just to say hi.
Well, okay, what you are speaking of more relates to personality, where, for example, you have the extrovert versus the introvert. It is not specifically related to acts of kindness, but I can explain. So, for example, the introvert is not the type of person who is the social butterfly. The extrovert is the social butterfly. The extrovert would come up to you and say, "Hi, how are you?" The introvert and the extrovert would do it because that's their nature. That's what they are comfortable doing. Now, for the introvert, when the extrovert comes to them and says, "Hi, how you doing?" they will respond. They weren't being timid. They weren't being shy. It was just what they are comfortable with. So it's difficult to explain sometimes when you don't understand the background behind why a person is doing what they're doing. So the outgoing person would think that the person who is quieter would not necessarily come to them and say hello or start a conversation. But once the conversation is started and the introvert decides, well, this is a conversation that I am interested in, then they would go on. Then they would have the conversation. But it is all about knowing the person and knowing the background. So if you don't know the person and you don't know the background that they're coming with, sometimes you can judge them from your perspective. And is that right or is that wrong?
All right. So since we don't have that many questions in the chat, let's talk service. Elder Blemon, I know that you do a lot of service for the church. Let's hear some of the service that you do, since you are what we term the newbie on Healing Moments. Let's hear some of the service that you perform within the Good News Community Church.
Okay, I have responsibility for the best group at the church. That's the Pathfinders and the Adventurers, the children. I'm the elder with responsibility for them. I work very closely with Sister Marcel Best, who is the Pathfinder leader, and the Bartlett family, who has responsibility for the Adventurers. I'm also a teacher by profession, so I teach in Sabbath school when given the opportunity to do so. I tend to be the one who runs the program when I'm there. Now, people might think that it is not so important a service, but the feedback that I've gotten in my absence meant that I've been told that I need to train someone to do it when I'm not there. I believe that everything for God must be done in decency and in order. God is a God of order, and when we come to his service, it must reflect that. So being a teacher also, I am very much a disciplinarian. So I tend to want things to be done the right way each time, all the time. Apart from that, I'm also an elder in the church. I work very closely with my first elder, Brother Bushell, and the other elders in any capacity they want me to. I'm also I'm also the secretary for the um, for excuse me. I'm also the secretary for person ministry, which means all reports that are to be done to person ministry, I have responsibility for. So that's my function.
Thank you so much, Sister Sherry. Let's hear some of the service that you perform at Good News.
Well, I thought we were just taken on Brother Blenman today. At the church, I am part of the women's ministries group, and we look out for the females of the church and the females in the community. We would have recently had a special day where we would have celebrated the women in the community. We would have brought in persons to be part of our program. We would have shared with them when we had Mother's Day. We would have done various acts of kindness. Our leader is really the epitome of some person who is always there to help. And along with that, I work as an educator like Brother Benman. I work with the education department. And especially last year at the beginning of COVID, we organized so that we could have devices distributed to those persons in the community who would not have been able to be online, those children in the community who would not have been able to be online. Where I, beyond my acts of kindness extend beyond church. So if you want me to, I can speak a little bit about what I do based on my profession. Not without going into much detail, I have the opportunity to help, really, really help students, parents, guardians, help with things like foodstuffs, help with clothes, help with providing mental health care, help with directing persons to the right agencies for additional support. I at home, it's just, when I spoke earlier about socialization, I truly understood that because at home I always saw my parents helping others, doing something, and as a result, that's part of what I would say my DNA. It's just what I do, what I like to do, and where I see my position in life. So it is not just about me as churchgoer, me as a professional, but as an individual. I just see whenever there is an opportunity to help, I and I am available and I try my best to.
Thank you so much, Sister Sherry. Dr. Dupree, I haven't forgotten you.
Oh,
You are,
all right. Good.
I haven't forgotten you. So let's hear from you.
Right. What I'd like to do is to contribute to the question that was being discussed before. Do we do
That,
it
that's
because
quite
it is
okay.
right, or do we do it because it feels good? And I wanted to say it all depends on what you want. The correct motive is because it is the right thing to do. But it is doing good, doing acts of kindness is actually is one of those, what should I say? I didn't want to say things because that's so vague. Um, Activities that is included in trying to rehabilitate people who are not used to doing good, people who are not accustomed to doing good. So you're trying to rehabilitate offenders, drug offenders. You're trying to teach juvenile youth that there is more to life than just going around and doing bad things. So, yes, you want to tell them that it's the right thing to do, but you also want to show them that there is an instant reward, that the body, your brain rewards you for actually doing good. So it can actually be used not necessarily by the person who's doing good, but by the teachers, the trainers, the mentors can actually use the performance of acts of service to teach young people, of offenders, people who need rehabilitation. It can actually be used to show them that there is a reward in place for doing good, because these people are accustomed to doing things that make them feel good that may not necessarily be the right thing. So I'm just saying that it depends on what you are using it to do. Personally, for those of us who know better and are Christians, we know that we do them because they make Jesus happy, because they're the right thing to do, etc. But it can actually be used as a training tool for teaching others that there is reward in doing good.
Okay, we have another question coming from YouTube, and this one is from Marion Paris again. And it asks, you know of a situation that some persons would not try to help themselves and are always waiting or calling on others to help them. Should you help such persons?
Go, Doc.
Of course. Well, are we going to extend it to what we were talking about last month? Last month, we spent a lot of time talking about forgiveness. And should you keep forgiving people who do bad things to you? It's kind of similar. These people can help themselves, but they keep asking for help. Maybe they need to be retaught how to help themselves. Maybe you think they can help themselves, but they probably do not know, or they probably are hoarding what they have. I'm sure there's a way you can teach them a lesson without putting yourself out too much. But I think that's a very personal thing that people have to kind of go through for themselves. You can't tell somebody that they shouldn't help people who can help themselves. It probably is spoiling the person, but you can't really tell somebody that they can't do that. But so I will leave it to the elder to comment on that further.
The Chinese have a proverb. It says, teach a man, give a man a fish, feed him for a day. Teach him to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. You might know that the individual can do better, but as the doctor said, you need to teach them to do so. It's going to call for patience. It's going to call for time. So as long as you can do good for them, you're doing good for them, and also teaching them how to do better. And I think that because love doesn't, if you are loving because you are accentuated by love, never says it is enough. You continue to help, but you're helping also to teach that individual how to help him or herself.
Just to vein as well, not to prolong, but just to go back to what Brother Bevan would have said earlier about the principle of helping. It is on principle that you help, but it is also on principle that you explain to the person. And sometimes we may think that the person can help themselves based on our perspective. Remember, sometimes when we view life through our lens, and so therefore we have a skewed perspective. But if we can help, especially if there are minors involved that are that are also the end result of our helping, we may not just be helping a mother or helping a father or helping a grandmother, but in helping that adult down the road, it may really be the children that are the chief beneficiaries of what we give. So while we may, in our mind, say, well, you know, she can get off her lazy self and do something, really and truly, she may have additional issues that we may not know, number one, and number two, it is in helping her that her children are helped.
Okay, we have a question coming from Sister Rochelle, and it asks, can doing good help heal someone who is unwell?
If it is a physical unwell, then I'll leave that for Doc to explain. If it's a mental unwell, yes, it can help. I would have spoken about the fact that helping pro-social behavior, of which part is helping people, can be a mood boosting benefit. So to boost your mood, making you feel good about yourself. And it also combats negative feelings. So if you're feeling depressed or if you're feeling down and you help someone, the possibility of that helping you to temporarily forget whatever it is that you are dealing with is very strong. And therefore, yes, it can help you feel better or feel well.
From this person's perspective, when you help someone as a Christian, you're doing what Christ has called you to do. And when you show this to the individual, you are showing him or her, the Lord, the God that I serve, this is what he would have me do towards you. So you're teaching them that the God that you serve through you is assisting them.
Okay, we have one last question in the chat, and it asks, Jesus was always helping when he was on earth. Shouldn't altruism be a natural part of the human nature? And before you answer that, there is also a comment that goes along with that. It says, I think some people have developed a learned helplessness behavior. We need to modify our approach in our attempt to help them. So I don't know if she had asked her question and answered it, or if you guys want to weigh in on that as well.
You go ahead, Sherry. Let's more your feel.
No, I thought you were going to speak on it.
No, I
Okay.
You go ahead, yeah.
Okay. So when we talk about learn helplessness, yes, there are individuals who have developed the victim role, the victim mentality, and they are excellent at doing that. When we speak of altruism, that is, maybe we should ask the person to further clarify what they mean when they use the word altruism as it relates to what they understand it to mean when they refer it to something that Christians should do. I don't know if the person would mind speaking, but because it's a very interesting point.
Yeah, and I saw, based on what Rochelle said, I decided to recheck one of the websites that I had visited when I was preparing for this. And one section talks about the science of altruism, where it talks about reduced stress. And reduced stress is known to shorten life by shortening what are called telomeres on our chromosome, the end caps. The shortened end caps linked to early death. And they're saying that there are actually studies that show that if you cultivate that positive emotional state through pro-social behaviors, through being generous, you can actually lengthen your life by lengthening your telomeres on your chromosome. So it actually can make you better physically, not only mentally.
And just to add to, when we think of altruism and acts of kindness, it may seem to be really cliched, but I'll say this. If we live our life with what would Jesus do, then that kind of helps us to determine whether we should perform acts of kindness or the principle behind them, things like that. So therefore, doing good, it it should be natural to the human being. And I'm not specifically relating to Christian or non-Christian, because we have many persons who are very generous and who are always giving. And we just in as I said before, no man is an island. They're always we should see it as a circle where we give, others give to us, and it continues and it continues. Not exactly as we give, but in some way, others are always helping us as well, whether it's in performing a service to us, whether it's in giving of themselves, their time, whatever it is. Let's always see our position or our place in this life to be able to lend assistance to someone in need.
I want to thank you for joining us this evening on Healing Moments. Remember, we will be back here again next Thursday at 6 p.m. Remember also to get your voice notes in, and that email address to send it to is goodnewscommunitychurch@eastcarib.org. That is goodnewscommunitychurch@eastcarib.org. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. And I look forward to seeing you again next Thursday at 6 p.m. when you join us again for Healing Moments. Until then, have a healing moment.
Take a moment for your body. Take a moment for your mind. Take a moment for your spirit. Take a moment to be well. Take a moment to be healthy. Take a moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment every day. Take a moment for your body. Take a moment for your mind. Take a moment for your spirit. Take a moment to be well. Take a moment to be happy. Take a moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment to show you care. Take a moment to show you care. Just to show how much you care. Yeah.